Get out now. Not going to tell you twice, Arthur. Those seats cost more than your entire retirement. Pension. The rain was drumming against the panoramic glass roof of the Tesla. Models played a rhythmic, mocking sound. Beside me, my son-in-law, Marcus, was gripped with a white-knuckled rage, his eyes fixed on a tiny, almost invisible smudge of mud on the passenger-side floor mat. It was a smudge he'd left, after spending the afternoon, fixing the drainage pipe in his backyard. A task he'd ordered me to do because he was too busy disrupting the industry to pick up a shovel. I looked at him, my face a mask of practiced neutrality. It's raining, Marcus. It's 3 miles to the house. Then you'd better start walking, he sneered, reaching over to pop the door lock. That leather is premium vegan hide. I have a meeting with my lead investors in an hour. I can't have the cabin smelling like old man and wet dirt. You're a liability to my image, Arthur. Honestly, I don't know why Chloe keeps you around. You're just a relic of a world that doesn't exist anymore. I stepped out into the downpour. The door hissed shut behind me, and the silent electric motor whisked him away into the gray mist. As I stood there, water soaking through my cheap windbreaker, I pulled a burner phone from my pocket, a device Marcus would have laughed at. I dialed a number that wasn't in any public directory. "This is Vance," I said, my voice dropping an octave, losing the feeble old man lilt I used at family dinners. "Initiate a full forensic audit on the Zenith project's burn rate and that $10 million series of bridge loan from V.A. Capital. Prepare the clawback provision paperwork. Marcus just informed me that I'm a liability. It's time I started acting like one." Marcus thought he was the king of the tech world. He didn't realize that the throne he was sitting on was built entirely of my wood, and I was about to pull the nails to the world. And more importantly, to my daughter Chloe and her husband, Marcus, I am Arthur Vance, a retired, somewhat dim-witted former high school shop teacher. They see a man who wears Velcro shoes, clips coupons, and lives in a small rent-controlled apartment. They see a man who is lucky to be invited to Sunday brunch. What they don't see is that Arthur Vance is a carefully constructed ghost. After 30 years in corporate restructuring and venture capital, I retired from the public eye. I didn't want the fame. I wanted the leverage. I operate through VA Capital, a private equity firm that functions as a silent angel of mercy for struggling startups. I don't take board seats. I don't do interviews. I just provide the oxygen and the occasional suffocating grip. The tension had been building for months. Ever since Marcus' startup, Nexus Flow, started gaining traction, his ego had become a localized weather system. The incident truly began 3 days ago at the family dinner table. Marcus was celebrating. He'd just secured a commitment for a massive expansion. To the future, Marcus toasted, raising a glass of vintage Cristal that I knew for a fact he'd charged to the company's operational expense account. By next year, Nexus Flow will be the primary data aggregator for every logistics firm in the tri-state area. We're moving into the big leagues. Chloe beamed at him, her eyes shining with the reflected glow of his perceived success. "And you did it all yourself, honey. No handouts." Marcus cast a disparaging look toward my end of the table. I was currently struggling with a particularly stubborn piece of roast beef. "Exactly," Marcus said. "It's about vision. It's about being a product guy. Not like the older generation who just sat in factories waiting for a pension." "Right. Arthur, you ever see this much money in your life? Even in the movies?" I wiped my mouth with a napkin, keeping my eyes down. "It's a lot of zeros, Marcus. I just hope your liquidity ratio can handle the scaling." Rapid expansion often leads to a technical debt that can't be serviced. The table went silent. Marcus burst into a loud, condescending laugh. "Liquidity ratio? Technical debt?" Marcus mimicked my voice in a high-pitched warble. "Look at you! You read a Wall Street journal in the doctor's waiting room. And now you're a consultant. Stay in your lane, Arthur. Go back to fixing my sprinklers. Leave the high finance to the people who can actually afford the suit they're wearing." He then proceeded to brag about his new secret weapon. He'd secured a convertible promissory note from a legendary silent investor, the aforementioned V. A. Capital V. A. Capital only bets on winners. Marcus gloated, leaning back. They've given me a $5 million infusion with a valuation cap that practically guarantees I'll be a billionaire by 40. They didn't even demand a seat on the board. They just believe in my genius. I took a slow sip of water. I knew exactly why VA Capital didn't demand a seat on the board. I didn't need a seat when I owned the floor the chairs were standing on. That's wonderful, Marcus, I said softly. But you should be careful with those convertible notes. The covenants can be quite restrictive if the milestones aren't met. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Enough! I'm tired of the old man wisdom. You're here because Chloe feels sorry for you. Don't mistake our charity for an invitation to give advice. You're a guest in this house, and quite frankly, a messy one. That was the spark. But the explosion happened in the car, when he treated me like a stray dog that had soiled his precious upholstery. Standing in the rain, watching his taillights fade, I realized that Marcus didn't just need a lesson in business. He needed a lesson in ego depreciation. I pulled out my phone and called my primary attorney, Elias Thorne. Elias, I said, my voice as cold as the rain down my neck. Regarding the Nexus Flow contract, check the cross, default clause. Marcus just leased a fleet of luxury vehicles and a penthouse office using the series of funds as collateral, claiming them as essential marketing assets. Is that a breach? Technically, Arthur? It's a massive breach of the fiduciary duty to shareholders, Elias replied, his voice humming with professional excitement. If you trigger the audit, the entire loan becomes due and payable within 24 hours. Trigger it, I said. And Elias, make sure the process server meets him at his global launch party tomorrow night. I want the product guy to see exactly what he's produced. I started walking. The 3 miles didn't feel long at all. In my head, I was already drafting the notice of acceleration. By the time I reached my small apartment, I wasn't cold anymore. I was energized. Marcus wanted a world without relics. I was about to show him that some relics have the power to bury the present. The next morning, I was back at their house. I had arrived early, before the sun was fully up. Carrying a small toolbox, I sat on the porch, nursing a lukewarm cup of instant coffee, looking for all the world like a man with nowhere else to go. Marcus came charging out of the front door at 8 a.m., looking disheveled. His premium vegan leather briefcase was tucked under one arm, and he was barking into his headset. What do you mean the sweep account hasn't cleared? It's an internal transfer. Check the batch headers again. If that capital isn't liquid by noon, the vendors for the launch party will pull the plug. He stopped when he saw me. He didn't apologize for leaving me in the rain. He didn't even acknowledge it. Arthur, move your feet, he snapped, and don't touch the car. I had it detailed last night to get the scent of the elements out of the cabin. I pulled my feet back obediently. Morning, Marcus. You look stressed. Is there something wrong with the future? He glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. Just business, Arthur. High-level stuff. Things that involve more than 4 digits. Stay here. Fix the porch light, and try not to break anything expensive. He peeled out of the driveway, the tires of his Tesla chirping. He didn't realize that the reason his sweep account hadn't cleared wasn't a technical glitch. It was a notice of adverse interest filed by VA Capital. I had essentially put a digital padlock on his treasure chest, and I held the only key. Once he was gone, I didn't fix the porch light. Instead, I drove my beat, up 2005 sedan, to a nondescript glass building in the financial district. I bypassed the main elevators and used a private key card for the service lift that led directly to the penthouse suites. Elias Thorne was waiting for me with a stack of folders. He's sloppy, Arthur, Elias said, dropping a thick document on the mahogany desk. Marcus has been treating Nexus Flow like his personal ATM. He used the bridge loan to pay the security deposit on a $5 million innovation hub in Soho. But the lease is in his name. not the companies. That's a textbook commingling of assets. I flipped through the pages. It was worse than I thought. He'd also issued fractional share warrants to several influencer friends in exchange for social media hype without notifying the primary creditors. He's diluted the cap table to the point of insolvency, I noted. My voice cold. He's betting everything on the launch tonight. He thinks the hype will drive a Series B valuation that will cover his tracks. What's the play? Elias asked. We let him have his party, I said, a small, sharp smile playing on my lips. I want him at the height of his arrogance. I want the room filled with the people he's trying to impress. And then, we'll perform a mandatory redemption of all VA capital notes. Since he's breached the negative covenants regarding asset transfers, we have the right to seize the underlying IP as collateral. That will kill the company instantly, Elias warned. Nexus Flow isn't a company, I replied. It's a monument to his vanity, just providing the demolition crew. For the rest of the afternoon, I played the part of the invisible architect. I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the lead underwriter of the logistics firm. Marcus was hoping to sign. I didn't tell him who I was. I simply suggested he perform a UCC-1 search on Nexus Flow's equipment. He'd find that everything from the servers to the coffee machines was already encumbered by my liens. The second call was to the catering company Marcus had hired. I knew they were worried about the payment. I assured them that while Nexus Flow's credit was under review, V.A. Capital would personally guarantee the invoice provided they delivered the final bill directly to me at the event. The third call was to my daughter Chloe. Hey, sweetheart, I said, my voice softening. Are you going to Marcus' big event tonight? Of course, Dad, it's going to be huge. Marcus says it's the night our lives change forever. Are you coming? Marcus said. Well, he said you might be too tired. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I said. I have a little surprise for him. A graduation gift, of sorts. By 7 p.m., the Nexus Flow global launch was in full swing. The venue was a converted warehouse in Dumbo, filled with neon lights, expensive gin, and people wearing black turtlenecks. Marcus was center stage, holding court, basking in the attention of angel investors who were really just vultures looking for a quick exit. I walked in, wearing my old shop teacher's blazer, the one with the frayed elbows. I looked like a janitor who had wandered into a gala. Marcus spotted me from across the room. He didn't even come over. He just signaled a security guard and pointed at me. The guard, a large man with an earpiece, approached me. Sir, I think you're in the wrong place. This is a private corporate function sign. The CEO's father-in-law, I said calmly. The guard looked at Marcus, who gave a dismissive wave, indicating he should let me stay, but keep me in the corner. Marcus wanted me there. He wanted me to see the world I would never belong to. He wanted me to see the leather seats of his entire life. As the music throbbed, Marcus stepped onto the podium. Tonight, he shouted into the microphone, we don't just launch an app, we launch an era. Nexus Flow is valued at $200 million as of an hour ago. The crowd cheered. I looked at my watch. 3, 2, 1. Elias Thorne walked through the front doors. He wasn't wearing a blazer. He was wearing a $1,000 suit and carrying a silver briefcase. He didn't look like a guest. He looked like an executioner. Behind him were 2 men in dark suits. They weren't security. They were process servers. Marcus saw them and paused, his smile faltering for a fraction of a second before he recovered. And here we have some of our legal team arriving just in time for the celebration. He tried to keep going, but Elias didn't go to the bar. He walked straight to the podium, climbed the steps, and handed Marcus a red folder. Marcus Sterling? Elias' voice was amplified by the microphone. Marcus was still holding. I'm Elias Thorne, General Counsel for VA Capital. I'm here to serve you with a notice of default and immediate acceleration of debt. The room went deathly silent. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning. What is this? Marcus hissed, his face turning a shade of gray that matched his Tesla. This is a joke, right? I'm in the middle of a presentation. It's no joke, Elias said, due to multiple breaches of your financing agreement, including the unauthorized use of capital for personal real estate and the issuance of unrecorded warrants, VA. Capital has exercised its right to freeze all corporate assets effective 5 minutes ago. You no longer have the authority to sign contracts, access company bank accounts, or even pay for the drinks these people are holding. Marcus looked at the crowd. He looked at the investors, who were already stepping back, their faces turning from admiration to predatory calculation. Then his eyes found me in the back of the room. I wasn't hiding anymore. I stood tall, my hands behind my back, watching him with the same clinical detachment I used when grading a student's failed project. Marcos' voice cracked. Arthur, what did you do? I didn't answer. I just started walking toward the stage. Every eye in the room followed the old man in the frayed blazer as the crowd parted like the Red Sea. The silence in the room wasn't just quiet. It was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a building's collapse. I stepped onto the mahogany stage, my footsteps echoing against the polished concrete. Marcus was trembling, the microphone in his hand emitting a low-frequency hum that sounded like a funeral dirge. Arthur, he whispered, his voice cracking. What is this? Who are these people? I took the microphone from his limp hand. I didn't need to shout. The acoustics of the room, designed for his ego, now served my authority. Marcus, I said, my voice steady and cold, who spent a lot of time talking about the future. But you forgot the most basic rule of the past: never bite the hand that feeds you. Especially when that hand is the one that signed your lease, your payroll, and the very air you're breathing in this room. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw the lead investors' men. Marcus had spent months courting, checking their phones, likely calling their own legal teams to distance themselves from the radioactive wreckage that was now Nexus Flow. I don't understand, Marcus stammered, trying to regain some semblance of his alpha persona. You're a shop teacher. You're a Relic, VA. Capital is a multi-billion-dollar fund. You couldn't possibly. VA stands for Vance Associates. Marcus, I interrupted. I founded it 30 years ago. I spent 3 decades restructuring companies far larger and more complex than this data aggregator you've built on a foundation of lies and borrowed credit. I turned to the audience, my gaze sweeping over the vultures and the dreamers. As of 7:15 p.m. tonight, VA. Capital has initiated a general assignment for the benefit of creditors. Under the terms of the security agreement signed by Mr. Sterling, all intellectual property, including the source code for Nexus Flow, has been assigned to the senior lien holder. That would be me. Marcus lunged toward me, his face contorted in a mask of desperation. You can't do that! It's my company! I'm the founder! Elias stepped between us, handing Marcus another document. Actually, Marcus, because you used company funds to secure personal debt specifically for your penthouse and your fleet of marketing vehicles, we have successfully argued for piercing the corporate veil. You are now personally liable for the $10 million shortfall. The founder is about to become a debtor. The blood drained from Marcus' face. He looked toward the back of the room, searching for Chloe. My daughter was standing there, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and a dawning, horrific realization. Chloe! Marcus yelled. Tell your father to stop this! He's ruining our life! Chloe didn't move. She looked at Marcus, really looked at him. Perhaps for the first time, she saw the man who had kicked her father out in the rain because of a smudge of dirt. She saw the man who had built a life on a foundation of arrogance and borrowed prestige. I looked at Marcus, my expression devoid of pity. You told me in the car that I was a liability to your image, Marcus. You said I didn't know what money looked like. Well, this is what it looks like. It's not a leather seat or a panoramic roof. It's the power to erase you from the industry with a single phone call. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. The mud on your floor mat? That was from fixing your house, the scent of old man you hated so much. That's the smell of hard work, something you've never understood. You wanted a world without relics? Congratulations. You're about to see how fast the modern world forgets a man with a negative net worth. I turned back to the microphone. The bar is closed. The party is over. To the vendors in the back, please send your final invoices to Mr. Thorne VA Capital. We'll ensure you are paid in full. As for the rest of you, I suggest you find a new future to invest in. This one just went bankrupt. The room cleared out with surgical precision. Investors slipped away through side exits. The music was cut, replaced by the hollow sound of wind, whistling through the warehouse rafters. Marcus collapsed into a designer chair, the very chair that now technically belonged to me. He looked small, he looked like the child he was, playing at being a giant. What now? He croaked, looking at the floor. Now, I said, stepping off the stage. Now you find out what it's like to walk. I'd start now, Marcus. It's a long way to the bottom. The aftermath was swift and total within 48 hours. Nexus Flow was in Chapter 7 liquidation. The innovation hub in Soho was padlocked. The Tesla was repossessed. And Marcus' name came a cautionary tale in the very tech blogs he used to obsess over. I didn't take the money for myself. I folded the assets into a trust for Chloe, ensuring she would be taken care of, provided she learned the one lesson. Marcus never could. That wealth is a tool, not a personality. A week later, I was sitting on my small porch, the same one Marcus had told me to fix while he went out to conquer the world. The porch light was working perfectly. Now I'd fixed it myself. I heard the sound of a taxi pulling up. Marcus stepped out. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit anymore. He was wearing a plain hoodie and jeans, carrying a single suitcase. He looked exhausted, his skin sallow and his eyes heavy with the weight of a dozen lawsuits. He walked up the steps and stood before me. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just looked at the old man in the Velcro shoes. I came to say goodbye, he said, his voice barely audible. Chloe filed for divorce this morning. I'm moving back in with my parents in Ohio. I nodded slowly. A change of scenery can be good for the soul, Marcus. Provided you bring a soul with you. He looked down at his shoes, a pair of scuffed sneakers. I thought I was better than you, I thought. Because I had the numbers on a screen, I was the one in control. I didn't realize that you were the one who built the screen. Power isn't about what you show the world, Marcus, I said, standing up. It's about what you can afford to lose. You were so afraid of a little dirt on your leather seats that you didn't notice the engine was falling out. Humility isn't just a virtue, it's a risk management strategy. If you'd treated me like a human being, instead of an old man, you'd still have your company. You'd still have your wife, and you'd still have your pride. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of keys. Not the keys to a Tesla, but the keys to an old, reliable truck I kept in storage. Go to Ohio, I said, work a real job. Pay your debts, and maybe in 10 years, you'll be half the man you thought you were last week. He took the keys, his hand trembling slightly. Why are you helping me? After what I did. I looked out at the street, at the quiet, ordinary world. Marcus had tried so hard to escape, because I said softly. Even a relic knows that everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. Just make sure this time you use better materials. He walked down the steps and got into the taxi. As the car pulled away, I sat back down in my chair. The sun was setting, casting long golden shadows across the lawn to the neighbors. I was just Arthur, the quiet old man, who liked to putter around his garden. They didn't know about the millions in the bank or the companies I'd saved or destroyed. They didn't know that the invisible architect was resting. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. The world is full of people like Marcus. People who think the shine on the surface is all that matters. But underneath the leather and the glass, there's always something deeper. There's the truth. And the truth is, I've never minded a little dirt on my shoes. It just means I'm standing on solid ground. I closed my eyes and listened to the quiet for the first. Time in a long time, the future could wait. The present was exactly where I wanted to be.